Hello, everybody. If you are watching us live, please send us your name and your state or your city where you're calling from, represent. We have Dr. Jackie here with us tonight, and I'm so excited about it. And we're talking about breaking the stigmas of mental health illness. Such an important topic, Dr. Jackie. So, in observation of Mental Health Month, this is what we're talking about. Dr. Jackie Maxwell is here with me tonight. Beautiful woman of God. She's going to share with us on how we can just break the silence. I love how she said that. Just break the silence of people just hurting, hurting in silence. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Lena Lassiter. I am the founder and president of Forever Healed. We are a nonprofit. And what we do is we help our clients who are grieving a loss of any kind. We help them to recover, reclaim their lives. We help them through the grieving process. We give them tools to be able to complete the pain that they're feeling due to a loss. And we do that in a couple of ways. We do that through one-on-one and group grief recovery classes. And we also do corporate lunch and learns about the hidden cost of grief in the workplace. So Dr. Jackie, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm also a licensed minister, licensed under Pastor Derwin Hickman and Francois Hickman at Divine World Changers International Ministries, advanced certified grief recovery specialist. And next year I graduate with my master's in counseling with the concentration PTSD, anxiety, and grief. Dr. Jackie, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who are watching us, again, shout us out. Let us know that you are watching. Let us know what state, your city or your state. Hi, Linda. We see you that you are dialing in or watching from. This is also going to be available via replay. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. We will play it on Forever Heal's website. We will play it on Facebook Live for a couple of weeks. It'll continue to play. So thank you so much for being here. Hi, Andrea. How are you? Good to see you. So Dr. Jackie Maxwell. Hello, lady.
Hello. Praise God. What an awesome opportunity. Thank you so much, Minister Lena, for giving me this opportunity. And I just want to acknowledge and applaud and just give all honor to God, because he is my all in all. He's at the head of my life. And for this opportunity, and also for how he has used you in this capacity, in this part of ministry, but going out to the world to make a difference. And without a doubt, you are truly the epitome of the Great Commission in carrying forth your responsibilities there. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. So, Dr. Jackie, the reason that we've been going online and, me reaching out to you is that during this pandemic, we aren't able to do our grief recovery classes. So one thing I said that we can take advantage of are the platforms that we have on social media, and also to just partner with people like yourself who are, experts in certain areas. You can be a resource to someone who may need it, tonight. So I just thank you for just sharing your heart tonight and your years of experience with us. And again, just partnering with us as a community coming together to bring hope and to bring healing and to let our words encourage and inspire someone who's watching tonight. So thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to introduce you guys formally to our guest speaker. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just the stigma, Dr. Jackie, around, mental health illness. And I know you have a lot to unpack for us tonight around this topic. So again, I just thank you for even your talking points. It's going to be good, y'all. I saw her talking points. It's going to be really good. So hang in here with us. You don't want to miss Dr. Jackie's talking points. But who is this beautiful woman of God? She is a passionate speaker, transformational coach, empowerment specialist, and she's a consultant. Dr. Jackie is the founder and CEO of Jack LaVelle Coaching and Consulting Group, where she assists people to refine their clarity of vision and reignite their personal passion in order to represent their authentic self. Dr. Jackie, I love that, because we are all unique and individual, and we should just walk in our pure authenticity. I love that. She serves organizational leaders, faith leaders, and individuals who are ready to do the work, and swapping the idea of managing people with the mindset of coaching relationships. How beautiful is that? As a result of her transformational coaching, people are writing books, birthing businesses, changing careers, attending college, and celebrating strong relationships. She's also a certified grief recovery specialist, assisting people moving to a place of peace and completeness, addressing the pain, isolation, and loneliness caused by significant emotional loss. She earned her Doctor of Strategic Leadership degree from Regent University School of Business and Leadership. And as an employee of the Commonwealth of Virginia, she was the program director of the Substance Abuse Cognitive Therapeutic Community. For over 30 years, Dr. Jackie has imparted her knowledge and compassion to men, women, and adolescents experiencing the disease of addiction. We got to have you back on. That's another topic in and of itself.
Yeah.
She is married to Pastor Maxwell Jr. They have a son, a daughter-in-law, and 2 grand boys, Andrew and Luke. They are under the leadership and spiritual covering of Bishop Daniel Robertson and co-pastor Elena Robertson, pastors of Mount Gilead Full Gospel International Ministries. Woo!
Woo.
Praise God.
Praise God, yeah.
You are doing a lot.
Yeah.
Sandra, thank you for being here with us. Nice to see you. You're always supporting. I really appreciate you. Hi, Lisa. New York. All right. We have a lot of people from New York.
Yes.
Cassandra Smith. Thanks for joining us, Cassandra.
Hi, Cassandra. Lady Cassandra. Oh, Pastor Andrea. Hey there.
So tonight, mental health. So Dr. Jackie, I was reading up on this, and of course, all the counseling books that I have reviewed and just looked at certain studies when it comes to mental health. And 1 in 5, they say, 1 in 5 adults, that equates to 46.6 million people who experience mental illnesses in a given year. A given year. So we should be having this conversation. So my hope for anyone who may be suffering after seeing this video is that they will get treatment, Dr. Jackie, that they don't let the stigma create self-doubt and shame in them, that they won't isolate themselves. And here's what I love the most, that you should not equate yourself with the disease or the diagnosis, right? So if you have been diagnosed with bipolar, or you have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, then your confession should be that the doctor diagnosed you with that, but don't say that this is who you are, right? Don't let that define, who you are. So I'm just hoping that tonight, that what we will cover will free and deliver people, and that they will seek treatment. Because I think some of the stigma, and you may get into this, is that people are reluctant to get treatment.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because we've been told to be strong. And I don't know about you, but in my household, and for you guys who are watching with us, I know in our household, we were told, like, what goes on in this house
stays in this house.
Yeah, right. Boys don't cry. Hold your head up, be strong, things of that nature. So we are reluctant to get treatment because we're afraid of being labeled. Yes. So I want to dive into some of this tonight with you. So again, just thank you for being here. Thank you for your heart tonight. So let's just talk about it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put Dr. Jackie's information. Is going to start scrolling on the bottom of the screen. It's going to be her website information. So you can contact her if you want to, and we'll get that going for you, Dr. Jackie.
Thank you so much. Wow. And everything that you said is so very true. We want to break the silence of suffering in silence. So many are suffering in silence, Minister Lena. And And it's interesting, even as you gave those statistics, and the same statistics that I have here in front of me to share, but our culture has made progress as far as stigmatizing. Even the fact I recognize that, as we know, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that was a U.S. government legislation that was done several years ago, as well as in October. Then there's a Mental Illness Awareness Week, and so that's progress. But without a doubt, there is much work to be done. And when we talk about what people call a taboo, and that concerns me, when we start talking about the fact that our culture, we're increasingly able to be transparent in a lot of different ways. And, even pastors are saying, well, persons are more freely talking about domestic violence or pornography, substance abuse issues, issues around being single, or marriage infidelity, issues concerning marriages, estranged family members. But still there is this silence, this stigmatization of mental illness. And as you said, and I wholeheartedly agree, is that we want to be better equipped to respond to those with mental illness and their families. Because we know when we start talking about any illness, physical illness, mental illness, the family is impacted. And so it's imperative that we make a move, especially the body of Christ, that we make a move in this direction to address these issues and no longer be a part of the silent community.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I wanted to really to address. Now, let's talk a second about the word stigma. Okay, so the dictionary says a mark. That's interesting. A mark of disgrace or infamy, a stain or reproach as on one's reputation. Okay, so that's the dictionary's version. And I always listen for significant words, because in my spirit, there's more that we need to unpack and pull apart out of this. There's a professor of sociology, Dr. Bernice Pescolito, and she is out of the University of Bloomington, Indiana. I had an opportunity to research some of her studies, but she has spent all of her career addressing the stigma of mental illness.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, all of her career,
Wow.
But she says the stigma is considered a mark. Now, it is something that the word mark, we're hearing the second time, placed on a person or group that separates them from other people. Those with the mark experience prejudice and discrimination. Okay, so we heard the word mark twice. We've heard isolation, we've heard prejudice, we've heard discrimination. Okay, so as we know, anytime we have this much, when we talk about prejudice and discrimination, we know that there is a lack of knowledge, misinformation, a lack of awareness, a lack of education, fear. Those are the kinds of things that typically go on when there is any type of prejudice that's going on. So those are the things that I think, we have to keep in mind. But when I look at that word mark, I'm going to go back to that. When I think about a mark, I think about a logo. Think about a couple of those pocketbooks that are upstairs in my bedroom. I think about a brand. I think about a make. I think about a designer. Now, I remember, I think it was probably in the 80s, 90s, designer jeans. Why designer jeans were so important and so popular, I have no idea. But it was something about knowing the original designer. So it had value. It increased the value because we were more aware of who made it, who designed it, where it came from, its worth,
Mm.
okay? Knowing the real and authenticity. When something's signed, when a picture, a portrait is signed, it holds its value because the person who created this masterpiece, their name is the mark that's listed. So as we shift in helping individuals and look at this as a means of helping individuals, helping families, and helping society, and I'm going to say the church, the faith community, in understanding, having a deeper level of understanding and awareness that this person was created by the master designer. That's what this individual, this person who has experienced some mental health challenges, the key of breaking through this stigma is helping them to know that they're set apart and made in his image.
Yeah.
I think that's key.
Yeah.
If you all have comments, please, by all means, share your wisdom, share your knowledge. I know we have some men and women of God on the line. I see their names popping up, and as well as persons who might not come to this experience with a spiritual background. And so all information, all voices are welcome. So please share your thoughts. We want to hear what everyone has to say. This is, this is about us working together to make this happen. So our value in God's eyes never changes. It doesn't depreciate. That's something to celebrate.
Yeah.
And when that happens, we know that we are operating out of the mind of Christ.
Yeah.
And I need to pause right there. And you mentioned that our pastors, Bishop Daniel Robertson Jr. and co-pastor Elena Robertson, and Pastor Elena Robertson has taken it upon her. God has given her a tremendous vision as far as ministry in this area. And so we work very diligently in carrying out the vision that God has given her. And it's so the ministry is called the Mind of Christ. And so that has made a difference in knowing that and helping others to understand that we don't have to spiritualize everything. We don't have to spiritualize what is going on. We don't know who's sitting. There's often a lot of pain in the pew, pain in the parking lot. And maybe I should say pain in the parking lot, since we're doing some distancing. But shifting mindsets, that's really what this is all about. When we shift mindsets, we dispel those old myths. We move away from old thinking, those dark, isolated, lonely places of shame that persons experiencing mental health issues are dealing with. Loneliness, shame, isolation. Okay. So sometimes in order to look forward, we need to look back, because I started to take a look at, okay, so where does this, what has transpired over the years? And as you mentioned, Minister Lena, I know for me, I've lived in Richmond most of my life, Richmond, Virginia. And I remember conversations about Petersburg. And I wasn't always sure what that meant. Okay. Didn't hear a lot about, I heard other people talk about what's said in here stays in here, but I did not hear that. That wasn't something that was said to me by my parents. But I'm always aware that there's more to that story. So you need to really take a look at history. So something that I learned is that in ancient Greece and Rome, people were shunned. The belief was that illness was caused by evil spirits. That seemed to be, when I started researching this more and more, that seemed to be the underlying fear, the underlying belief that evil spirits, and in this period of time in Greece and in Rome, they believed that those spirits had the ability to fly out of that person and possess the people around them.
Wow.
So a part of that stigma came, again, out of fear. They also believed that it was the responsibilities of the families to take care of those persons. So there were no hospitals. Sometimes people just wandered the streets, and then there were others who, might have ended up in jail. Actually, 4th century Christians established one of the first hospitals, and so as I just kind of briefly give some history, but I encourage you, it is something worth researching, because it also helps you to know how to approach people, how to pray for people, how to encourage people. And so there was a church called the Priority of Saint Mary of Bethlehem, and that was one of the first psychiatric hospitals in Europe. That opened around 1247. And over the years, the hospital shifted, and they started calling the hospital, and it really became a place that wasn't a pleasant place to be. They called it Bedlam. It named it Bedlam. And it became famous for cruel and humane treatment. What saddened me is at some point, people were allowed to pay to come there, and it became a tourist attraction.
Wow.
And so that went on through the 1700s. So for centuries, there were beliefs that mental illness was caused by demonic passions, and this led to persecution, and this led to a lot of torture.
Wow.
Another thing that I found out, and I think I found it very fascinating. In the United States, as time went on, some of the first state institutions started being formulated. The first one in the country was built in 1773, and it was in Williamsburg, Virginia. And it was Eastern State Hospital. It later was called Eastern State Lunatic Asylum.
Wow.
That's unbelievable. I mean, but that's actually what happened. And then within a short period of time of opening this hospital, and now we're talking, during a time of slavery. And so during this time, about 5 months actually after the hospital opened, they started bringing in African Americans. So eventually, the superintendent later informed that this was intended to be the first mental institution for the care of African Americans. So, but they had to keep it segregated. So African Americans were housed in the basement of this particular building. In the 1800s, then there was a wave of asylum reform in Europe. There was a French physician who recognized that moral treatment needed to happen. And it was a very unusual method, and people were very skeptical, but it started working. It started shifting, things started changing, mindsets started changing, and people started having some hope. Back to America, around about 1851, it was a time in which slaves were leaving their masters. They were escaping. There was a physician by the name of Dr. Samuel Cartwright. He coined a term, drapetomania, DRAPETOMANIA. Still think about how are stigmas and mindsets created and passed on from generation to generation. Unless we cut that, erase that, dispel that, and pour truth into that. So this physician gave this term to persons who were escaping. So the whole thinking was, if you escaped your master, you were mentally ill. So he termed it drapetomania. That moved us into the Depression and World War II, and persons, being treated and controlled by opium and morphine and all kinds of medications, as well as electric shock treatments and lobotomies and fever therapy. Hadn't heard of that one, where fevers were intentionally, they were given medication so that their fever would intentionally rise.
Right.
They would have a fever, that their temperature would intentionally rise. And then also injected with malaria. Okay. So stigmas. Wow. We recognize that even though we've come a long way, there are many things that we can talk about. We can look at and see how the media has even shifted, how they present those who have either been in a situation of dealing with mental health issues or currently are. We can even look at, I think, another aspect of how we have moved forward is if we look at actors and actresses. They have begun to share their story with the hope that it will be of help to people. Now that's progress.
It is.
That's progress. Yeah. And then we also can look at that even from a place of educationally, when we go into various universities or when we're in various programs, more attention is given to how we are able to shift our thinking, shift our mindsets, change our thinking.
Right. Right.
How our thinking, when we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, when we talk about shifting our minds so that we can have a better life. When we talk about Dr. Caroline Leaf and how she has shown us, yes, you just because you had a head injury as a child doesn't mean you have to stay in that condition.
That's right.
That you do have some choices.
That's right.
We can celebrate while there has been a lot of pain and a lot of discourse and a lot of ugliness as far as how people have been tormented, treated, belittled, humanized. We have made progress.
We have.
So when we talk about where stigmas come from, this is something that I looked at.
Amen.
Hosea 4:6. It says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Of my law, where I reveal my will. Because you, the priestly nation, have rejected knowledge. I also reject you from being my priest. Since you have forgotten the law of your God, I will also forget children." It's no reason for us to have a lack of knowledge. Even as I look at Minister Lena, I think, we probably in a few weeks will be talking about the stigmas associated with the coronavirus. Right. I mean, there are persons who are fearful to share that they are experiencing the symptoms, are fearful to seek treatment. Right. And it's the same things that we're talking about as far as mental illness.
Yeah, because they don't want that label that you were talking about.
Exactly.
That mark. Yeah.
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 That mark.
So Dr. Jackie, what happens if we don't address it? So, you share with us what a stigma is. You talked about where it came from. I like the fact that you looked back on it and gave us some history there. But what happens if we don't address it?
Without a doubt, it defies the quality of life. And virtually, if you think about it, any health issue, if it's ignored, if the signs and the symptoms are ignored without professional help, without attention, the more serious the situation becomes, the more difficult it becomes to treat. And for some, it negatively impacts their quality of life and possibly even ending their life. So it's really important that we address this so that persons who need treatment can get treatment, so that we can dispel the myths and pull down strongholds. I even look at the fact that their lawmakers and insurance companies, they've had to make a shift in their thinking, because what has happened is persons who needed treatment didn't have a diagnosis. Because they didn't have a diagnosis, they couldn't get insurance.
Right.
And then it just became a cycle. It's time to break that cycle.
It's time to break it. It's time to break it. So how do we dispel it? What do we do? What are some things that we do? I mean, you talked about sharing openly, and I think that's great, to have people who are sharing their testimonies, trying to inspire and encourage others to just speak out and speak up. What are some other things that we could do? How do
some other things that we can do, as we've said, being aware, being knowledgeable, being educated, talking freely, listening, talking but listening.
Yeah.
Often there might be persons who come into our workplaces and we realize that there is something that's going on. And it's important for us to not be fearful of, that's not my business, but we need to be in a place of breaking cycles,
Yeah.
We don't want this to be cyclical.
Amen. Amen.
I was talking with someone recently about how leaders must, during this season, be intentional about grieving, and grieving the losses of things will not be the same as they were. And when they go into their workplaces, we need to be mindful. Maybe 15 cubicles with people in isolation in 15 little cubicles, that might not work any longer. So there's some things that we're going to have to take a look at as a community, as the body of Christ. We watching what we say, our words.
Yes.
Are we speaking life, or are we making jokes that really might not be the most appropriate?
Come on.
Are we using language crazy and cray, and are we using language that's just, we have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Discrimination.
Yeah.
Who are we hiring? Are we hiring persons that we are labeling in our head when they walk into the room?
Come on.
Who are we avoiding?
Yeah.
Who are we sitting beside on the subway, on the bus, on the train, when we start getting back together again? Who are we still social distancing, but it's not required and it's for another reason?
Wow.
That's called ostracizing and exclusion.
Yeah.
So it starts with us. It starts with us being able to take a look at, okay, this is serious.
Right.
And more so now, Minister Nina, than ever before, because of what people have experienced during this coronavirus. Think about it. Persons who have had challenges with a lot of different things, it might be substance abuse, it might be mental illness, whatever it might be, this has impacted people. And there's no research to talk about that, other than it's, because it's actually evolving. So you can celebrate in the fact that, okay, this is the time to make the difference, because we can't say, well, what we used to do was, or research in 1947 said. Okay. So, and I'm aware that we've done a lot of separating, even with the disciplines. when, you know, there was a time in which, and I remember this, I remember when I first started working in the field, and if you needed mental health treatment, you went to a building down there. And if you need drug treatment, you went over here. And if you needed alcohol treatment, you went over there. And I'm thinking, now, you know, when you look back at that, what was the need or the purpose? But most importantly, we can't go back to that.
Right.
Even that's, look at the messages that sends.
Right.
So that vicious cycle, you know, we cannot keep that. We can't keep that going.
Amen. Amen. And you're right. It starts with us, right? So gaining the knowledge, changing our behaviors, changing how we speak over people, you know, making sure that we're speaking life over people, you know, and again, just the history. And I was like, wow, you know, to be in a facility where the name of it, lunatic, where lunatic will come from, right? So again, just some of the reluctancies that we see and people getting treatment because they say, well, I'm not crazy. You know, I don't want people to, you know, to think that I'm crazy. They have a fear, you know, Dr. Jackie, of just, you know, that label. So it's great to hear you talk about even where the root of that, like where it comes from. So we have to just change our confession. And again, just the knowledge of knowing that it's not that you're crazy because you have a mental illness. Because
exactly.
if you have a physical illness, again, we would go get that treated all day.
Yes.
You know, and I think even in a biblical sense, and I love talking about Nehemiah, you know, when Nehemiah was grieving, and the first thing was fatigue. So if you're watching, a lot of times you're physically tired. That's where it starts.
Right.
Most of the time, you're physically tired. You know, and then it starts to mess with your head, your brain, and then we tend to isolate. You know, and we said that a lot. You know, but God had to restore him physically. God had to restore him mentally, and then he started changing his confession. you know, it just, and we have to talk about it. And I love what you said about listening, because a lot of times, Dr. Jackie, even in the morning, sometimes we ask people, or someone may ask you how you're doing, but they don't even hang around a second.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so we have to be open to the listening. Wow. So what great points tonight. So for those who are watching tonight, Dr. Jackie, and they may be kind of reluctant, you know, going through that reluctancy of getting treatment, perhaps they're isolating. Maybe they're feeling depressed or, you know, feeling down. Again, maybe it started physically and now it's a mental thing. What words of encouragement do you have for those who are watching tonight, for those who are going to watch the replay? What words of wisdom, of hope that you have for those who are watching tonight?
Without a doubt, you are not alone. You are not by yourself. There are persons who are interested and willing to assist you. We'll have opportunity to give out some resources as well at the end. But, you know, organizations like NAMI, you know, they do a fantastic job as far as providing assistance, and they really promote and encourage to break that stigma. Even right now, people are partnering online so know that you do not have to suffer alone. We do have wonderful mental health professionals, as well as persons in the faith community. There are pastors that are much more aware. We've come a long ways with that are aware of the needs of their congregation. They are willing to not just be there for you, but willing to talk about how valuable you are and assist you in getting the professional assistance that you might need.
Yeah.
That is not shameful. If, as you just stated, if I burn my hand, I'm going to seek some assistance, because I know that eventually that burn can turn into something worse. And it's just time. I'm reminded of and I'm not a big movie person, but this came to my mind today. I remember a movie back in the 90s, and it really was all about a family coming together, and the mother, the grandmother, the matriarch of that family was instrumental in making sure that on Sundays they ate together.
Mm.
That family community piece, coming together. She made sure that the family was close knit. They knew that they were going to have dinner together. Even the youngest child was very observant and very connected, and knew that everybody was coming together. Well, the matriarch of the family had a brother, and the brother lived in the house, but no one ever saw the brother.
Mm.
And the brother, he didn't even come out for this big Sunday meal, while they would have the meal and everybody would come and laugh. And, the daughters would talk about what was going on in their lives and their husbands. And, the child, his name was Ahmad, and Ahmad would share, his little stories. But the uncle, the brother to the grandmother, he never came out of his room. Actually, they would take his food to him.
Uh-huh.
And then at the end, he would slide his food, his tray, his plate out of the door. And I remember that, while it was intended for entertainment, it was some laughter and some drama. But I remember that Big Mama, as they called her, had a debilitating stroke. And what happened was this visible illness. The family was aware, and they accepted, and they came to, Big Mama, and they were by her bedside, and, everybody was right there for her. She decided to have a deathbed conversation. Right before she died, she talked to the child. And I found that interesting, wherein all of these adults, they were grieving. They were trying to be there. They were trying to make things better. But the child was the listener.
Mm.
That child. So that child had that conversation. Big Mama passed away. And so after Big Mama passed away, the family kind of just started unraveling. There really were no more Sunday dinners. And so Ahmad, in his little small wisdom that he had gained from Big Mama, because she was a wise woman, he also remembered what she shared with him.
Mm.
And so his thing was, I got to get this. I know what I got to do. I got to get everybody together. Now, I identify with Ahmad because I grew up in a family, and I was the rescuer. I grew up in a family where there was alcoholism. And so I was the one who was like, okay, we got to get it together. We got to help everybody get better. Okay. So I was the one that was trying to pull it all together. That's what happens often in a family that has brokenness, such as with mental illness, with substance abuse, whatever it might be. Okay. So I was trying to be the hero and bring everybody. So that's what this child did. And they really weren't listening to him, but he said, but I got to tell y'all, he finally convinced them to listen.
Yeah.
He brings them all they come together, and he's like, I want to let y'all know, Big Mom said there was some money. And they're like, okay, where is the money? And so, it turns chaotic because they were already in chaos. They hadn't had Sunday dinners in a while. So this coming back together after months and months of being away and having that consistency, which is key when you got a family that has a lot of instability going on.
Yeah.
They come back together. The child ends up in tears. Ahmad is like, well, I mean, it's supposed to be some money. I mean, that's what Grandma said. That's what Big Ma said. And in that chaos, someone does something. Probably somebody turned over the macaroni and cheese. I don't remember what happened. But anyway, a fire starts in the kitchen. And lo and behold, Uncle Pete comes out of that place of darkness. that isolated room. Uncle Pete is running for his life with his TV under his arm. And Lena, what he is doing is he's trying to escape. But within that story, he drops the television, and there's the money. More often than not, that's what's happening. In plain sight, there's secrets.
Wow.
We're running and things are happening. Yeah, without a doubt, during these past 8 to 10 weeks, there's been opportunities to have some family time and come together. And there's some changes now as people are trying to re-enter. I don't say return, but I'm saying to enter into society. But we don't want that unraveling. We desire to break that unraveling, those stigmas, and the persons that are dealing with addressing those things that they've stayed away from, been isolated from, their families have not talked about.
Right.
It's time to expose that so healing can happen.
That's right.
If I burn my hand, as I used that before, and I covered that burn, at some point I got to pull that cover off. I got to pull those bandages off for that burn to truly heal.
That's right.
And
but
that's
I like what you also said too, though, because you said if I don't treat this burn, it can turn into something else, right? Infection could set in.
That's right.
All kind of things, right? That burn could turn into something else.
Right.
Like, wow, that was deep. That was good. Yeah.
So dispelling the stigma, and this is the closing piece for me, as far as that whole hidden in plain sight, where those secrets and that misinformation, but also the reward was hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
Words of Apostle Paul says it like this: God has put the body together such that extra honor and care are given to those parts that have less dignity. This makes for harmony among the members, so that all the members can care for each other. If a part suffers, all the parts suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And if one part is honored, all the parts are glad.
Wow.
Amen.
Wow. Thank you. That was blessed. Thank you so much. That was powerful. So what questions? Are there any questions for Dr. Jackie? Any questions? And if you have a question and maybe you don't want your name by the question, we don't have to put your question up here. You can just say don't post, and I can ask the question for you. I like that, Pat. Sister Pat, yep, sugarcoating the problems.
Right.
Thanks, Lisa.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any questions?
Comments?
How do we break the stigma, y'all?
What are some, I guess, to ask, what are some things that you can do immediately to break the stigma?
We have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you so much for a powerful, impactful, and insightful discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Andrea.
Yeah, we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thank you for being open and willing tonight to just even talk about it. So again, during this time, Dr. Jackie, I just want to pull as many resources as I can together to have people use this platform to speak, to bring words of encouragement and hope, to those who may not feel it.
Right.
So I appreciate you.
There's much work to be done, and I think this is the time. The time is now for us to stand firm and to move forward in what we know to be true as believers, as far as taking care of one another, um, helping people to know that they are loved and they are lovable, and that their life matters
Yeah,
to us, and but also to God.
that's right. So Lisa asks, what are some steps of grief? So Lisa, are you talking in terms of healing from grief? Hello, cousin. Thanks for joining. It's Marie.
Did you want to say something about the grief,
Lisa, just can you elaborate just real quick, sweetheart? So when you talk about the steps of grief, are you talking about the steps for healing? The loss of faith. Okay, that's good. That's real. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. They're very, and I'll say a little bit, and then Minister Lena, if you would jump in. One thing, when we start talking about losses, it's especially if there are losses that we might can't immediately. They're not people, okay? But the loss of faith is real. I want to say that there's more to that, and so you have the opportunity to talk that through, about how you got to, when you tell your story and talk about how you got to that place of loss of faith. There's more there that Minister Lena or I could assist you in uncovering, unpacking, because that's where that incompleteness is. And in order to get to that wholeness, that completeness, it requires for you to take a look at, okay, what got me to this place? Where did things shift for me? Where did things start happening for me?
Yeah. And Lisa, you're probably, and if this is your circumstance, or speaking for someone else, who may be watching this, a lot of times we feel like we have lost our faith. But I tell you what I have found to be true, is that we haven't necessarily lost our faith. Sometimes we can be angry with God for a certain situation or something that has happened, and that's okay. So the first thing we need to understand is that it's okay to say that. So I love the fact that, number one, you're just bold enough to even ask the question, because a lot of times we feel like, oh my gosh, you know what? Because we say that we're angry with God or we lost our faith, guess what? He's not going to fall off his throne, right? And he already knows, right? So he knows what's in our heart. He knows what we're thinking. He already knows what we're feeling. But a lot of times what people are tired of is what Dr. Jackie had mentioned earlier, people not listening. So sometimes I feel like especially in the church, sometimes when we're hurting and we share or we express that, that we're hurting, and people say, oh, well, I pray for you, or, they start hiding behind the scriptures instead of listening and hearing and seeing your pain. Sometimes, people say, well, leave it at the altar. But you know what, Lisa? We need people to hold our hand sometimes and walk us to the altar. So the grief, I call it it is a process, right? But it's just a life-changing process. It's a healing process, and everybody's process is going to be different. So your grief process may be different, than mine, but I guarantee when I hear people say that they have lost their faith, no, they are sick of people giving them the misinformation. They're sick of people telling them to hold their head up. They're sick of people telling them that somebody's in a better place, and they're not hearing the pain, the incomplete pain that Dr. Jackie is talking about, that you are going through, or anyone else who has lost a loved one. You know what else we get sick of? People comparing. So sometimes we say that, again, I cut my foot, and then somebody else want to start sharing about how they cut their foot completely off. So I challenge people when they say that they have lost their faith. You probably haven't lost your faith. You're sick of hearing the same repetitive, responses to people who mean well. So let me just say that they totally mean well, but they just don't know what to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you leave the conversation not feeling that you were heard.
Right.
That's key.
Yeah.
So then that feels like another loss. Yes.
Right.
So, you're thinking maybe they didn't hear me. I'm saying I'm really hurting because my father passed away, or I'm really hurting because I was supposed to be there for my daughter's graduation, and she didn't get to have the graduation, and we made all these plans, and those are real losses without a doubt.
Yeah.
And when people say, well, okay, you'll be fine, it's just gonna take some time and you'll be fine.
And I hate that statement. Yeah. And I always share with my clients, and some of you may be sick of hearing me say this, but be careful when people say that they're fine. Because Dr. Jackie, those are those feelings inside that's never expressed. And they start saying that because they're not heard. But the steps is to be honest about how you feel. And you have to be able to say it in a trusted, safe environment where you're not going to be criticized, where you're not going to be judged, and you're not going to be analyzed. Because grief, your heart is broken. You don't need to be fixed. You just have a broken heart. Any other comments or questions? You guys have been great tonight. I've been loving the interaction. We have a live group tonight on Facebook.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys for being so engaged. Dr. Jackie, any final thoughts tonight before we close this session?
Well, I'm just excited because I leave this session knowing and believing that people will have hope and be able to reach out to others for the things that they in the past didn't think that they could get. We're not going to have statistics increasing about stigmas. We are knowledgeable, we have been informed, and we know that the love of God that's on inside of us, that we can share that with the world. And we have so many ways and opportunities to do that. So I'm excited because I'm leaving this moment believing and knowing that some things are going to shift, and it's going to be a different place to live, a different place to be, and lives will be changed.
Amen. I wholeheartedly am in agreement with that. Thanks, everybody. If you know anyone who may be dealing with grief or any mental health issues, please share this video. Again, Dr. Jackie and I will have it on our Facebook pages. It'll be on Forever Heal's Facebook page. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So share, continue to comment. You guys have been great. Walk in your healing. Walk in your authenticity. There is hope. There are resources. There are people who are out here to encourage you and lift you up and inspire you. And we hope that you have been blessed tonight. Thanks again, Dr. Jackie.
Thank you.
Woman of God. I appreciate all of your godly wisdom and your nuggets tonight. Peaceful rest.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Cassandra.